Hello and welcome to Dr. Bob's Christian Counterterrorism. This is our second in a series that deals with school shootings. We already went through the first one, and in that first one, what we did, we identified, let me see here, the situation, who is at risk, who is at risk. Well, the shooter's at risk because uh, one of our focus uh, points is going to be try and keep that shooter alive. Even though we stop the shooter, we want to keep that shooter alive. We want them to trust Christ, but we want to find out what's making them tick, what's their motive, all that kind of stuff. And typically, what happens in any kind of a group shooting event, typically either the person takes their own life or the police take them out, bam, and they're dead. And then the big question is, well, what motivated them? Why did? Were there links? Are they part of a group? All kinds of questions. We want to save them alive. We want to stop them, capture them if possible. And so that's going to be the theme of what we do here. But once again, let me mention to you that I'm not a professional. And if you've got a problem, you need to check with the professionals. Get the true story, whatever your best solutions are. I'm just sharing my thoughts and my ideas. And I've spent a lot of time thinking, but never doing. So, I'm not really a qualified expert. As you think about making a donation to support this ministry, pray about me learning how to edit out the coughing, and then pray about how to keep this ministry going. The reason I'm putting this down as podcast is because I'm 85. I'm not going to be here very long. And so when I'm gone, I want this thing to continue to be available to the public. And I have a whole lot of episodes to share. And so you can be a part of that continuation as a part of my legacy, I guess you'd call it. But it needs to be supported. It's a continual cost. Every week I've got expenses that tie into the insurance. Let me tell you, insurance is running me about $40 a week because I have a high liability. Okay. And so that's one of the issues. And then there's the fees for the podcast. It goes on and on and on. So anyway, keep me in prayer, and that'll be precious. Now, quick review. We looked at the shooter as at risk. We looked at students, staff, teaching staff, nurse, assistant, the principal and the assistant principal, business office, maintenance, janitorial, then the physical plant, the offices, the classrooms, the cafeteria, dining rooms, supplies, closets, and finally we just brought up the topic of the security people. Who are the security people and where are they posted? And then we wanted to know about the perimeter. How about the perimeter? Is that the best place to get them to stop them? Absolutely, because there you have zero casualties. But it's like in a church. If you stop them out at the edge of the church property, you don't have anybody getting killed. But if you let them get in, let them get to the parking lot, get them to the front door, into the auditorium, every closer step there is, the casualty count goes up. Oh boy. So anyway, we're talking about vulnerability, the perimeter, the parking lot, loading of buses, parents, overnighters. Where are you? Do you have overnight security for the buses, for example? Special events, vacation time, who comes in, city contractors, utility people, major renovators, mail, and delivery of various items. And that's where I think we finally shut it down right there. So that gets me to what I call page 3. You call it second video cast, and I've already used 4 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to go quickly through this. The kinds of threats. Now, really, each threat is kind of unique in the way that it's used, in the way that it hurts, and the level of damage it does to the person or to the property. So we got all kinds of threats. Guns is the first thing that comes to mind. One of them that would not normally come to your mind, though, is a sniper. And I treat that one because there's a section I'll do later on where if you got a flat broke terrorist, they call it the flat broke terrorist. And what's a flat broke terrorist do? Well, he's got his rifle, he's got a scope, and he's got one bullet. And he's going to find some place as a sniper. He's going to do something with that. And is going to shut down the church operation. Can he do the same with school? Absolutely. So we're going to look at that. Um, as the guns are we talking about a walking shooter? Maybe it's a running shooter. Maybe there's an ambush we can talk about. What about knives? We're going to talk about knives that are thrown or knives that are used to stab with a forward thrust or an overhead coming in, like that. Different ways of dealing with these things. And I'll mention this right now. My overall plan for you is to become convinced in your heart that everybody needs to have self-defense teaching. They need to have it built in, not just for school, but for everything that goes on in their life from here on out. And we get a lot of sad stories because people get ambushed and on and on. So anyway, knives, are they going to be thrown or stabbed? How do you defend against that? And there are techniques. And right away you think it's self-defense, karate, taekwondo. One of my favorites is, and I don't know these things. I'm just saying the only one that I know anything about is Krav Maga, Kravmaga. It's unarmed self-defense. Now there's two ways that it was presented in my teaching. I learned it for over a year and a half, and one of them is self-defense, but it's also self-defense simultaneous with some debilitating, disabling move that you make to shut it down. You got about 3 seconds, and that's it. If you don't overcome that person in 3 seconds, then you're probably going down the tube. You don't want to do that. Okay, we're going to talk about clubs, chains, the garrote, throwing stars, brass knuckles. We'll talk about arson. This is one of the favorites because it's cheap, very destructive. The Molotov cocktail. It's thrown in a trash bin. We had 3 bombings, by the way, and I haven't mentioned Bob's yet, but we had 3 bombings of churches here in Las Cruces. One of them was a bomb into the trash bin. This is talking about arson now. Either way, you can pour flammable liquids, and get at the upper end of a parking lot and start pouring 5 gallons of gasoline down there and wait till it gets down to the end and then light it. It's just terrible what can be done, and yet it's very cheap, and causes havoc. Oh my gosh! So you got to watch out. How can we prevent that sort of thing? Certain chemicals. There are chemicals that when you mix them, they create an explosion or a fire. High hypergolic is what we call that. And so you got that kind of a problem. Now we've got bombs. Oh my gosh, all kinds of bombs. Bombs are kind of a favorite for the terrorists because they wreak havoc really big. They're kind of easy to prep, and you got ways to detonate it where you don't have to be there. It can be done later on with a timer, or it can be done off from somewhere else using different kinds of electronic means. And so we'll be taking a look at that kind of thing and what just lots of booby traps include a floor with a detonator on the floor. You get this overseas and you see it in the battle that's going on. Somebody steps on a mine. Well, that same thing can happen in school situation too. So we're going to be careful about a lot of things. Anyway, booby traps of all kinds. Some of them use a tripwire and so forth. We'll talk about drugs in the school, especially the kids bringing in candy. They got somebody off campus or even on campus brought in some candy goodies, and here I'm passing them out free. These are yours, and come find out some of them are laced with fentanyl. Wow, talk about big time killer. Fentanyl is one of the biggest, so we need to know about that. So what about same for drinks? Shooting up. Some of the kids are doing that. Man, I tell you what, it's amazing what you see in some of the schools today. Things they smoke, sniff, on and on. Airborne things. Well, one of the airborne things that we can deal with, or will look at anyway, is gases. It can be a gas that comes into the school building from the exhaust of a truck that's parked out in the back and is piped into the air conditioning. So there's various things there. So we're looking at gases, vapor. Vapor's like a little mist kind of a thing. May not be little droplets, but it's close to droplets. So, that sort of thing. Could be a powder, and you read about important people getting a letter with white powder in it. They're checking it out. So we got problems there. Could be something with radioactivity. And believe it or not, you can take spent radioactive material that's already used up most of its radioactivity, but it's still dirty from a radioactive standpoint. The half-life on radioactive material goes on and on and on and on. It's just not as strong. It's weaker, 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 but it's still there. And so radioactive material is a possibility. So we're looking at that. Vehicle-borne explosives. So let's say that they've got a car, and right on the front end of the car, there's some C4 explosive of some sort, and then they're going to ram the building. They're going to hit it. That's gym maybe because the gym's full of people. So they would drive that up there, and it's a suicide bomber. But they might just get it going, drop out, get it in gear, and going along, and he bails out at 15 miles an hour. You survive. But we won't if we're in the gym. So, it's bad. So vehicle-borne, exploding bumper, fuel bumper could be just a gas can of fuel. Parking lot, the bulk fire, talked about that, where you pour it in and it dribbles down through the parking lot with all the cars in there. There are all kinds of toxins, like ricin, for example, is one of them. Easy to make, deadly. And so there's a lot of them, and we'll go through some of those and see what can you do to screen them out, prevent them from ever getting into the system. Electrocution. Electrocution is where we're dealing with, say they got an indoor swimming pool. That can be a real threat, or an outdoor swimming pool, or a pond, or a stream that goes through. There could be some real serious opportunities for electrocution style of attack. And so it may be kind of rare, but it's not out of the question. And it could be electrocution within the building, especially if you've got metal rails on your stairwell and stuff like that. Tie up that whole thing. And as they're evacuating because there's a school shooter threat or something, they're coming down, they're all holding on. It could be a danger there. So we're going to look at electrocution. One of the things we're really concerned with, too, is the exit doors. And the exit doors on schools, like on the campus at the college, like out here, sometimes the doors have a loop or a bar that comes out like that, and you pull it, and you could chain that. And sometimes that has happened. And so they may decide, I'm going to take out this one school building. And so the guy comes up and he puts a chain around this door, and then this door, and this door, and this door. And the last door is the one he's going to go in. And it's probably a back door, something like that. But he's going to go in. He's got all those people trapped in there. And once the shooting starts, they panic and they run in every direction. Can't get out. And then we have a sad situation. So we're not going to have door pulls that can be chained. All right. Scandal. That's an intangible thing, but it's a scandal of any kind can really wreak havoc on a school system. And so we're seeing some of that sort of stuff. Fake news in the media, and the media is so bad. You'd think they'd screen some of the stuff before they put it on the air, but sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But anyway, that's an issue. What about the weather? I'll check my time. I'm up to 50. Oh, my goodness. We're going to talk about the weather. And I mentioned earlier that Satan uses not only people terrorists, but he uses nature terrorists. And I did mention the 500 mudslides in California. Let me tell you, there's been so many tornadoes go up Tornado Alley from maybe the corner of New Mexico right straight up through Oklahoma, right on into the northeast. Bad news, tornadoes. What do you do about that? There's a lot of life lost. a lot of structures down. So we're going to have to do some serious thinking there. Straight wind is another one. Like here in the Southwest, if we have a major thunderstorm, I mean, one of those really build up the towering clouds, so once it starts reaching a point where it's coming down, as that column of moisture, whether it's hail or water, rain, it could be either one. As that starts coming down and overpowering the updraft, it comes down in a whoosh, and it puts out an outward flow. It's a boundary flow, is what they call it, and it goes out, and those winds can get really high. That's one way of looking at winds, but we can have just straight wind too. Here in this area, we had one that was 91 miles an hour recently here in the Southwest. Went through one of the passes, but people went through the pass. Cars go through the pass, so it's deadly. We got floods, yes. We got lightning, earthquakes. You just go down the list. There's all kinds of weather-related issues. And so when we look at all of those things, put them together, we're talking a whole pot full of topics. And so it's going to take us a long time to get through what I call the school shooter, but it goes beyond the school shooting, touches a lot of different topics. And just bear with me, hang in there with me. I'll be grateful. But like I mentioned in the other one, I need you to subsidize me, help me. I'm not, if you make a donation to me, it's not taxable because I'm not a nonprofit. I'm just a preacher doing his own thing. And so it's a ministry, but it's not a 501c3. And what I am doing is I'm trying to get to the point where I can retire. My goal right now is to get enough of these put together over the next 3 years to where I can retire at 88. But I don't have any money. See, that's my poor planning. And that's a little lesson for you too. And so I need you to subsidize my poor decisions, my poor planning. And I trade you my wife's notes on this particular topic about how to be a blessing to your church, to your business, to your home, your family, a blessing to all kinds of situations. So we'll be, I hope it's a very interesting thing to you. And I do hope that it makes sense. And even though it's going to be kind of far out for some folks, they're going to say, hey, wait a minute, we don't want to teach those little kids 9 years old self-defense, and they're going to die right there just trying to do a karate chop on the killer. No, that's not the approach. But we are going, if you follow what I'm suggesting, we're going to train everybody in that school to be a self-defender. And they're going to have techniques and understand the risks. They'll understand that, if you get shot with a lower caliber, smaller caliber weapon, odds are you won't die. Now, some of the high-powered, really heavy load, powder load, those bullets go so fast and they just shatter. They make a really bad wound. That's probably fatal. But some of the smaller calibers, without expanding, if they don't have a particular nose on them or something, you'll live through it. And people have had multiple wounds, live through it. So we don't give up. Say, oh, gunshot. And you just flop down there and start, saying your prayers. You may survive and you may win. And so we'll work on that. All right, I'm already 5 minutes over. God bless you for being patient. I'm going so fast, and I apologize, but I got to get this stuff out, and I got to hurry. And so if you got questions, send them to me. My email is available to you, Bobby Donahue. It's all lowercase, BOBBYDONOHUE 47 at gmail.com. No spaces, of course. So anyway, love to hear from you. Let's have a prayer. Father, I thank you so much for the privilege now of sharing these moments. I pray your sweetest blessings on these folks that are listening, Lord. Meet the needs of their lives. Teach me how to monitor my podcast. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Goodness gracious. I'm sorry. Here we go. Find the off button, Bob.